We'll call the Pownal Select Board regular meeting Thursday, January 16th, 2014 at 7 p.m. for the agenda approval. Approval of minutes 1/9/14 and 1/14/14. That was a special meeting. Warrants, mail, old business, personnel policy amendment. I'd like to table until the 30th till we have a full board, and one of the people that was going to attend is out with the flu, so at that date, if we can.
Make a motion to table. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
New business will be an approval of the constable's expense line, designate surplus funds, approval of ballot articles to create planning fund. We'll adjourn to the road fund and general bridge work sessions. We have to approve the budget and the town warning. It's 6 o'clock in our January 30th meeting. With that, I'll take a motion to approve this.
Motion.
A second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approval of the minutes 1/9/14.
So moved. Second.
Okay, with that, we have in the mail, one of the motions that was made under the Vermont Rural Fire was made incorrectly, so when I read the mail, we're going to have to go through that particular item and motion it again. So just as a notation on those minutes for that. Okay, with that, motion on 1/14/14 special meeting.
So moved. Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Warrants. Accounts payable in the amount of $25,014.79. American Rock Salt, $34.1751. Hoosick Water for the wastewater, $14.40. Wastewater again, Siemens Industries, $62.40. Winter Equipment Company, plow parts, $42.37. Those are your larger Peter Holden, $15.75. The larger items in that particular warrant. Payroll 1/12/14, excuse me, to 1/17/14 in the amount of $66,2745. Those are your warrants. Take a motion.
Take a motion to accept them. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Rich, would you throw me the mail?
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Okay, mail. Okay, as I stated just a minute ago in last meetings, our motion was Vermont Rural Fire Hydrant Task Force, RE request for financial support, dry hydrant program. Mr. George moved and Mr. Ryder seconded, a budget of $100 in the general budget line for one time only, and the motion carried. We need to make this, they need this money today, not being voted on or going on or whatever. So probably after talking about it, we should take it out of the selectmen's expense line and make a check for the $100.
I make the motion, we take it out of this selectmen's line and send them their $100.
This is a one-time only, same as the others.
One-time, right.
Where it goes.
Second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. There's a flood hazard and flood insurance workshop, Saturday, February 8th at 9 to 12 p.m. in World Conservation Center on Route 413, Route 7, Bennington. It is 9 a.m., 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And there is also a workshop number 2, Saturday the 15th, from 9 a.m. to 12 at Manchester Town Hall. 6039 Main Street, Route 7A in Manchester. Anybody's interest in either one of them? That's through the BCRC. Certificate of Highway Mileage Reporting. It's a critical annual report to update state records and provide our town with correct amount of highway mileage. There should be no changes, and there has been no changes, so we need a motion to sign this.
Make a motion to sign.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
One signature or all, Linda? Okay. We have a letter from the Department of Environmental Conservation, Waste Management and Prevention Division. It's on a site in North Pownal that has been visited and checked, and all the activities of the tanks being removed at the North Pownal store and motors was under all the required bases that the state requires after the tank's removed from the soil and et cetera. So they are all set. And that was down at Quality Motors, North Pownal. Vermont Materials Management, moving from solid waste to substantial management, draft document. It is large. If anybody is interested in reading through this for a night with nothing to do, it is here, and there's a ton of it here.
That's in lieu of Hapsh coming tonight. That's what he's working on.
That's what he's working on.
He's working on with the BCRC.
Right. And I'm sure he can describe a lot more of this, the highlights of it at his meeting when he comes again. And that would be our mail, folks.
That paper wound up with
Okay,
that up here.
I'm sorry. It's
That's
not our
okay.
mail. We have a letter from one of our listers responding to the timesheet that was, we asked for more information. She respectfully declines on this. So I'd like to have this thrown in the mail again, Linda. At our 30th meeting, we have a full board, so the whole board can see it and discuss. If we could, please. That will take care of our mail now. Okay, personnel policy, we've tabled until the last meeting of the month, which will be the 30th. Under new business, we need a motion to allow the treasurer to combine the constable expense lines 100-41-81.00 and 141-85.00 to constable expenses 100-4100-79.00. This is combining these lines, so there's not quite as many in that. Need a motion, if everybody understands.
I'll make a motion that we combine the two lines. The two lines are police equipment service and training is what they stand for.
Right.
Steve gave the numbers, but that's what they stand for. I make the motion that we combine the two lines.
Second,
I'll second it.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion to apply prior year's undesignated general surplus funds in the amount of $84,837.36 toward the FY15 general expenses.
So moved.
Second it.
In favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion to apply prior year undesignated road surplus funds in the amount of $92,517.16 to FY15 road expenses.
So moved.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Under ballot article, shall the voters, we create this ballot article, shall the voters create a town planning fund and transfer of $10,000 from the capital fund to the town planning fund. Now, mind you, we've put $10,000 has already been added to the capital fund in anticipation of the ballot, in anticipation of the ballot article. If it passes, this will ensure that the money is available for future town plan required updates and consultation work.
Is that for one time?
That's to start a,
That's right, it's a $10,000 thing for,
that's
is that for one time to work on the town plan? I can't see making a fund where we do this every twitch.
You only have to do it every 5 years.
I know, but I don't even want to do it every 5 years if we don't need to. I think it should be brought up again if that's the case. We need a professional planner. That's what it's for, is to get a professional planner to steer us in the right direction. That's what the planning board said. All I'm going by is what they said.
right.
And $10,000 is a pretty good chunk of money. They think that we may get some grant money, but I mean, I can't see making this a fund line for, on and on and on.
I think,
Does the RC help you guys with planning?
I don't know.
Not to that extent.
if I'm reading this somewhere near right, shall the voters create a town planning fund and transfer $10,000 from the capital fund to the town planning fund?
That's right. The voters do get a chance on, and if they voted down, that means it's out. Is that the story?
No, because we already put 10 grand in there because the board
Then-
approved it.
We're just doing a formality?
We're doing a
I mean,
formality if they need
if
it
the town
again.
votes it down, I can't, they don't want the town plan. That's the
No,
town, the
we've
people
already
of the
done
town
it.
run it.
We've already done it. We did it a week ago, if I'm not mistaken. We voted to allow them to do this. All right, and that's where the $10,000 came from originally. This is,
Agreed to ensure that $10,000 would be available when they
Right.
needed it.
right, and that's why I said we already voted for that.
We didn't vote anything, we just
But we motioned and agreed to do it. So they know there's $10,000 put there out of that, not in their fund, but they're available. So if they go for the grants and stuff, right?
We had a conversation.
We had a conversation and talked about it, but now we're bringing it up putting it on as a ballot article. And, I mean, whatever the people decide, I think that's what happens.
It doesn't pass and they don't get it out of there, all right. So,
Who brought up this ballot article?
I made a recommendation that in order to ensure that they have this money to put it in a fund, the town plan regardless needs to be updated every 5 years. By statute. Sometimes it doesn't happen every 5 years, sometimes they have to readopt it, the current one. But every time you let it go more than 5 years, it'll cost you dearly to hire a consultant to catch you up where you need to be.
they were, what were they estimating? Somewhere between 10 and 15,000, correct?
Consulting.
Right.
Of which they'll try to apply for a grant, and it's unknown at this time if they'll get a full grant, which is highly doubtful.
Yeah. So if it doesn't pass on the town ballot,
And they'll have to come back to us and talk to us
where's
about
that
something else.
$10,000
Right now, it's sitting in the
Capital
capital.
fund.
capital fund? So if it passes on a ballot article, it will come out of that capital fund.
Yes.
It has not yet.
No.
There's no
It
line
can't.
for it.
Okay.
It can't. It
That's why
can't.
we're doing a
It
ballot,
can't,
right?
right.
That'll make a line for it if the voters accept it.
To move from one position to another within the budget.
I say leave it up to the voters then.
You know, and I would hope that, you know, planners would come to town meeting and explain the need for it.
Represent it. All right, so is that a motion, Rich? Motion form you just said?
Yes, I'll make that a motion.
Just to approve the ballot article,
Approve
that's
the
all.
ballot article.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the ballot article. Do we have a second?
Well, see, if it said one time, I would say fine, but I'm not into this putting 10 grand in there and just having a line for that. Like, that's not my thing. I mean, if it was gonna vote for it, you know, I mean, hey, if you're gonna spend 10,000, and put it in the planning fund, you know, they do it every 5 years or whatever, but usually, they don't have to, we don't put in for a grant to get a helper. They want to steer us away. I understood the meeting when they talked about it here was they thought that, you know, being 7 people or whatever there is of normal intelligence and everything, they thought they could steer it, but they seem to be having some problems and would like a little assistance, which is fine with me. I agree with all that. The only thing that I don't agree with is I don't like the idea of putting something on the ballot and then saying, well, we're always going to have 10,000 in that fund. I don't like that.
Could we possibly,
You wanna think on that and get back to me
I
on,
say we could table it for the last meeting till we got a full board again. 'Cause it's-
I
Maybe
need to
just to
have
word
time-
it a little bit different or something. I don't know.
Okay.
You know?
I don't wanna do it on the 30th though, because I know I have auditors that are anxiously awaiting to have the town warning prepared, and without knowing that this is gonna be a ballot article or not. Could you tell
We
me
need-
next
we-
Thursday? Could you think
Don't-
on it? I don't care if you check with wherever.
If we change this wording at this point, they need this to go forward now. They're starting the town plan
I
currently.
think the key word here is one time, if I'm not mistaken. Am I, Ronnie? You would like
Yeah,
to
if
see
you
that
want a
in there?
ballot article again, 5 years down the road,
Then you put
you-
it back
you
in.
get another ballot article. I mean, I won't be here for it, but somebody will. If they need more money to go on.
Well, how about maybe we table this and we'll just discuss this a little bit? Think about it. If someone else comes up with a better plan, hey, I got next week to work on the town warning
But when will we vote on this?
on the 30th. I either put it in and go with it the way it is, or on the 30th, I back it out of the warning.
Well, again, I'm just gonna repeat myself. If I'm not mistaken, it comes down to one time, you know, or this year, or however you want to word it. I think that's the sticking point, is it not?
How about if we put, shall the voters create a town planning fund and transfer $10,000 from the capital fund to the town planning fund for the year 2014?
They're unsure exactly. They're not filing the application for the grant until September.
You said 2014, 15? Because they're gonna start it in that phrase and they need $10,000 to 15 and that
I mean, I
gives them
think
the
this
money.
is something we can do here, but I think it just comes down to the wording. Would that work for you, Ron?
Gives them a 2-year span. And if there was a problem, they could come back to well, they couldn't because they have to be voted on again.
Or would you rather table it?
When it becomes a ballot article, of course, I'm not probably the best politician in the world or whatever, but you got these ballot articles, they're all the same every year, just about. And I don't want to see that coming up every year. That's the point. That's the
Well-
thing I'm getting at.
You either leave the 10,000 in the capital fund. It's there if we need to use it.
Then if we need to use it, I suppose we can draw it out of there.
Otherwise, it's sitting there. Rolls over.
Okay, we can make the
Then
decision.
they have to come and ask again.
We can actually, the board can make that decision to pull that out for them. Out of the capital fund.
They
So
pay
this
for it
was just
somewhere.
asking for a ballot article, so we actually can
Because
be
it would
the,
be future, the money,
Right.
the grants are getting tougher and tougher to obtain.
right. And it'd be nicer for them to have a line so they can show they have their,
The town plan is never gonna go away.
right.
It's mandated by statute.
That's what I'm saying, they'd have their
Or
own line,
required.
so they'd always be prepared.
You know, in another year, maybe you only put $100 in it, you know. But you'll have to build it back up again because it will be needed again at some point in the future.
Right. As soon as you use it for a town plan, you're gonna absorb everything that's in there, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure it will wipe it out.
Well, we have to do something.
How
so-
about the wording for the next town plan?
Well, actually, it's the completion of, isn't it?
Next town plan being completed in the years,
Completion, it's the town plan to be updated.
Well, see, I'm not
Starting
familiar with the costs
2014.
and all this, so I'm trying to.
It's always
Makes
around $15,000 or so to do the town plan.
So what have we done in the past? I mean,
We
why?
work on grants, and we hope that we get the full grant.
And if we didn't, it would come out of the capital fund anyhow.
It has to come somewhere.
Yeah.
From wherever the board says take it from, but normally it would be the capital fund.
So basically, by doing this, we're creating a line in the budget then for the planners to.
It would be in their own planning department. There would be a line there. It would be an expense line for when I had to actually, or somebody had to actually do an expenditure, whether it be, pay for
Yeah, this-
publishing or
Mhm.
pay a consultant,
Consultant or whatever.
whatever was related to a town plan expense.
now, correct me if I'm wrong, they would, just like your fire departments and everybody else, every year, submit what they needed for this line, for this. So it wouldn't be 10,000, it may be 15, or it may be 500, if that's what they were working on. It's just
Well,
that,
Like I said, once they're done
Right.
for 5 years.
and
so
this line will be in the budget, but they still have to request it through this revision process like we've been doing.
right, but it wouldn't be 10 grand, it may
Right,
be a
right.
different figure next time
They might
around.
only put 500 in, just so
Right.
that they can build their fund back up for another future.
I don't know.
This year, the request is 10 grand, because they need it to get the line started to do it.
Because they know the expense is coming. Whether it be in the next budget, the budget here that we're preparing, or whether it overlaps into another fiscal year. Because they may not be able to get it all completed within our fiscal year.
Like I say, and if, I'm assuming that they would represent this at town meetings, so more people would understand that it's not every year they're asking for 10 grand.
So what are you looking for, motion?
Well, we had one, you might
We had
have,
one, we
and
did
Ronnie
have a
didn't,
second.
so it wouldn't pass.
So it's sitting
So
here on the
just
table.
conversation right now to see, so everybody understood what the facts were on the motion.
So in other words, you're saying that every year, all these people that put in for the ballot articles, they put in every year.
They have to give us a letter of asking or represent what they want
So the
every year.
planning board would have to ask for money
they
again, if they needed it.
Yes,
That's what you're saying?
Yep.
Okay,
They
put
would
that in,
ask,
put
they
that
would
in the
ask
record.
for it in their budget to the Board of Selectmen to please put $500 in our planning fund.
remember last week in your folder, you had what the fire departments and other people had asked for? This would be the same thing
Same
them
thing.
asking for.
And it would be up to that current select board to say yea or nay.
They may look at the fund balance and say, well, nobody's gonna be working on
Right.
anything for another year, so
Right.
maybe we don't need to put any in this year, or whatever.
And with a line being in the budget, we'll be able to see what is currently in there as to what they're
I would
asking.
actually have an expense line to make an expenditure from without having to go to the capital fund.
And they would have the money there for grant
Right.
applications without,
They would know how much money they have towards the next town plan, and we've got this much money that would be town share. Because we won't be 100% funded. I think that's over.
I just ask a question too in this conversation. Um, Previously, has it been working all right the way it previously worked? If they would ask the select board to remove money that they needed for the town plan, you know, to cover their expenses? Or has this been a problem, I guess, is to create a planning fund? It sounds like there's been a problem.
The planners said when they came in here and told us that they would like to have this money set aside, or like to make a request, because they're gonna put in for a grant, of course, and they honestly feel that they're not gonna get only a percentage. So if they put in for a grant and it's gonna cost more than $10,000 for this, to hire this consultant or whatever, maybe 15 or maybe $20,000, and we'll have to pay a third. That's what they said here. That's what they figured, about a third. But the only thing that I was wondering was, I mean, like these ballot articles, they seem like they're always automatic. And, because a lot of times, we said before, that, hey, we ought to make them resubmit, go out and get a petition out, or do something. Instead of just saying, well, we want the same thing. Because some of these things, I mean, I look at, we don't have anything here that generates any money in this town other than taxpayers. And the only thing I don't like is if you stick $10,000 on there and in the shuffle, then eventually they say, well, every year we got to throw this kind of money in there. You know, I mean, this budget deal, like they were asking for a whole bunch of money to put in for the reappraisal fund and stuff. Well, we don't need a reappraisal for a while. We're above fair market value to start with. And I don't see the country turning around. But that's how it works. And then, yeah, I got people hollering at me, hey, look, you said you're going to try to protect my taxes. And that's the way I feel about it. So, I mean, if we just want to set up a fund in there somewhere, a line, you know, I mean, but they're going to vote on this. And if the town's people say, hey, look, maybe we like the plan the way it is or whatever, I don't know. You know what I mean? A lot of government and not much community input. That's the way I look at it. But if they do turn it down, well, then what happens? Do they get it?
It'll be up to the current Board of Selectmen at that time
pull
to
it out.
say
Yes or no?
yes or no.
Okay, so we are
So then you have to
commander in chief.
tell the state of Vermont why you can't update your town plan, which is the basis of your bylaws and
Well, we could update our
moving
town plan,
forward
I'm
to
sure, without
apply
hiring
for
a
other
professional
future
for
grants.
$20,000.
Well, you know, I was on the planning board for like 15 years, and we used Landworks, and I realized I know what it costs, and their 15,000 is in the ballpark.
And this is something that's also mandated from the
Statute.
state.
It's hard to get away from it, so either way, it's just a matter of how to do it and which is the easiest way to do it. And I believe working, we still have the say pretty much on what goes on, and it has to come before us each time. And I would be shell-shocked if each year it hit 10 grand, because
It
we
won't.
don't have to have that done every year.
It won't.
So it wouldn't, and they wouldn't be coming before us with that a lot of money. And if they did, we'd be the first to see it in the request. And we could call it in and question why, when we just did a town plan and it wasn't ready. I mean, they just want a line and have the money available, run their grants together. It would make it probably simpler than running back and forth, talking with us, than finding where the money's coming from before they apply and work within their own board.
Well, they add to ensure the state that we have
Had
the
the money,
money for
right.
the town share.
Betty has a question.
The ballot article that you're proposing isn't going to cost the voters anything more in their taxes, because all you're doing is moving the 10,000 from
It's
the
already been
capital
added,
fund to a
To their-
separate
their
fund for the
line.
planning board.
Right, to their line.
So you're not adding anything to the budget.
That's true, but the capital fund is not supposed to get to be overloaded. The capital fund, if we have a lot of money left over, it's not supposed to become a slush puppy. We're supposed to return it to the taxpayers. Because if you keep, and that's the point that I'm trying to stress. If you got $150,000 in the capital fund, what do we need it for?
Right.
We don't need it there. We should return it to the taxpayers. And I'm kind of adamant about that. Rather than, I mean, I know that we probably got to comply and we probably got to get some money. I just didn't like the way that was worded. Now, if we've discussed it, and I guess they ain't going to, and it's been made public enough. So enough, if somebody ought to listen and to this thing, they can make up their own mind.
Well,
But as far as fattening up the capital fund, and always saying, well, it ain't costing you nothing, it is costing you something, because that money the capital fund, it didn't come from no industry. It didn't come from the state. It come from the taxpayers. They put that bank of money in there. And that's the scary part to me, is when we say, well, we'll take it out of there. See, if you have a fund that is designated for a certain thing, then my understanding was they couldn't touch it. But the capital fund isn't that way. They just, we need the money. We got the money.
If we didn't, we'd have to go after the taxpayers for it, or have them vote for it, and that would raise their taxes.
Well, I have another question to do with that same thing. You also have 10,000 and change in an auditing fund that never seems to get used. Why do we not use that money?
That's a good question, because a line, if you're not using a line.
It's not a line item, it's an account, it's
It's
a
a fund?
separate, not a separate bank account, but the way that it's separated in the funds. It's a separate fund. You have an audit fund that has 10,000 and, I don't know, 700 and something in it. And I was just curious why we don't use that to pay for our audit that we're having.
We do. It does come from the audit fund.
On page 3.
Expenditures for
So
the
that
outside
fund right now
auditor.
is empty, and we've expended the 13,000 that we budgeted, plus the 10,000 that was in the fund already.
Talking about the CPA audit fund.
CPA audit fund, that is where all the
Is that
outside
empty?
auditor bills come from.
Dottie Group.
Is it empty? Does it have zero in it? Because our audit cost us $13,000 this year or more. And it was all expended in the line item and under the expenses. It wasn't, the fund hasn't changed.
The actual was
It's gonna,
10.7.
it'll be moved from the fund.
Well, it should have been moved at the end of the fiscal year. Does it still have 10,700 in it, Rich?
10,729.
Yeah, right.
The
So-
actual.
That was the
We've
actual.
not used,
It's budgeted 13,000 for 2014.
So by taking the money out of there, that would basically bring that fund down to almost nothing.
right, and if you took it out of there, you wouldn't have to expense it out of the money that you charged the taxpayers last year.
I don't have my current expenditure report with me at the table, but this report was as of October.
I haven't heard of any transfers from the audit fund to the audit or, the audit expense that you've paid has been expended on the expense line. Not taken out of the fund.
Comes from the fund, the audit
But
fund,
no, it
expense
doesn't come from
line.
the fund, Linda, if the balance today is the same as it was 3 months ago. Nothing's come from the fund.
There's an official transfer that hasn't happened yet.
Okay, so it's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
It didn't happen last year, but it's going to happen this year.
You would have to ask Ellen about that, okay? Because I don't actually do that part. But I just know we pay from the audit fund. That's what it's there for.
And that wouldn't be taken for this anyways. Just put onto this particular, if I'm not mistaken, this would not pertained to the town planning fund.
No, it has nothing
This
to
is-
do,
this
it
is a
has
separate-
nothing to do with the matter that's on the,
Right, and this is what we're discussing, this particular matter right here. So, do we want to table it till we have a full board, or do we want to make a decision on this to run this through as a ballot article?
I'm thinking, why don't you just table it? Roll it around.
I had a motion,
Just table
and it's
it.
been floating. Ronnie, do you want to second the
You wanna
motion,
table
or
it
you
or-
want to
Table it.
abstain for it, or nay it, and then we'll table it?
I'm gonna abstain, I guess.
Okay.
Might as well hash it over with more people or whatever.
All right, then we will table this, if it's all right with the board, until our next meeting,
Okay.
and do some thought on it, have two other members here, and finalize it at that point. One way or the other. Okay, God, that's always fun.
The reason you're abstaining is why?
I'm abstaining till we have a full board. More discussion.
That'll be brought up the 30th, which will be our last meeting of January. And that'll also be when we approve the budget and the town warning. And that meeting will start at 6 o'clock. With that under motion, I would take a motion to adjourn to the road fund and general budget work session.
Motion adjourned.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.